Hey everybody, it's Dana and welcome back to my YouTube channel and blog. Today we are playing with the newly released Craft Your Life project kit. This is the Feathered Lilies from Altenew. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous stamp set with beautiful sentiments. It also comes with a beautiful embossing folder as well as some stenciling for your coloring. And it also has designs that you can use and repeat, and it also has a die. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, what I love about these kits, the price point is excellent. So it's $59.99, but as you can see, you're going to get a large image. You're going to get some sentiments, an embossing folder, the stenciling stencils, or coloring stencils rather, and the die. And for that price point, it is very, very good investment, especially if you like large floral images. So this one here is a little bit bigger than I believe this was cut down to like 5.5 by like 7, I think. So it is a very large image. So all of this image is not going to fit onto my card front, but that's okay because I'm going to show you a pretty way of incorporating this and the embossing folder. So I went ahead and I stamped this down in some black ink. And I like to use ink that I know is not going to smear when I try to use the coloring stencils. Just make sure if you use an ink that's going to stay wet a little bit longer, that you heat set that ink, because if you go ahead and put your stencil right on top of it before it is dried, you might pull in some of that black from the outline. So I do make sure to stamp this twice. One, because I really want to have a great line work on this. Now, I think this image is absolutely insanely gorgeous if you didn't even color it. I just think it's a beautiful image. And if you had heat embossed this maybe on a colored piece of paper, colored cardstock, and just die cut it out, it will be gorgeous. Now remember, I said I did want to make sure that I heat set this because I did stamp it twice, and I noted this ink is a little bit still wet. Otherwise, you can set it aside to dry, but I'm not that patient. So that's why I use a heat tool for this. Now, since I have this all dried, I am going to use a little bit of a tape runner to kind of put this in place on my glass mat. That's just going to ensure that the paper doesn't move and I can go ahead and lay the stencils over it. So what I like to do is grab the largest of the stencils first. And I really don't think there is a right or wrong way to use this, like if you started the opposite way. But I also like to always start with the largest part I need to stencil first and get that done, and then incorporate my layers. Now, once again, if you did not want to stencil this, this would look so pretty if you watercolored it, or if you used the nude woodless color pencils, that would look absolutely gorgeous with this. Or once again, if you just wanted to heat emboss this on with gold, maybe on a darker cardstock, and then die cut it out, it would absolutely look gorgeous. So in this case, I am going to use my purple tape, and that is just going to temporarily hold my stencil in place. Now, I did think about using my pixie spray, but at the moment, I do not know where my pixie spray is in my craft room. So I'm going to have to go with the Never Fail purple tape. I am just going to make sure to put on a good amount so that this does not shift when I'm stenciling. Now, with my color palette, I do like to go to my Altenew chart. This chart is downloadable on the Altenew website, and it has all of their color combinations. So I do like to look through this to kind of pick out my color combinations sometimes, especially when I'm not just regularly coloring. I will go to this so I can see like what colors are going to match up or lay correctly when I go to do any sort of layering. So as you can see, there's always 4 inks, and it shows you at the end what that is going to look like when you stamp all of those together. So after I pick out my colors, I picked out 4, but I think I'm only going to use 3 of those. Now this color combination and all the inks that I use today are going to be in the description box below. So if you guys want to use this same color combination, you'll have that handy below. So I am going to use just the smaller ink cubes. Most of my ink cubes from Altenew are the minis. I think they just stack really well. I am going to use my little ink stand here, so I don't have to necessarily hold on to my ink cube. And I really love this ink stand because it is easier for me to just grab some of that ink and not have to worry about my ink cube sliding around. So I will go in with my first layer, and this is the lightest layer that I'm going to be using today. So this is the lightest of this yellow combination. So you always want to start with your lightest color and work your way backwards. Next, I'm going to come in with my greens. Again, I've picked 4, but I think I'm only going to use 3 of these. Again, these colors will be listed in the description box below. Again, using that handy little ink stand, I can go ahead and set up that cube and go ahead and start working on the leaves of this image. Now, again, I think if I remember correctly, there's 3 to 4 stencils on here. And they lay down beautifully. And these are really easy to line up. I did switch to a smaller brush. These are the Altenew, I believe these are the mini blending brushes. Again, I'll have them linked below, but they really do come in handy when you're doing smaller spaces. So once I get down that first layer of the green, I can go ahead and remove this stencil and then pull in stencil number 2. Now, as you can see, this stencil does not color in all of the flowers and does not color in all of the leaves. We are actually building up that color by going through all of the stencils. I really do want to try my hand at just coloring this. Again, I think it's such a gorgeous flower that really would stand up to some great watercoloring. Again, it's very, very easy to line up, and each stencil opens up another area for you to color. So one more time, I do want to come in with that purple tape, make sure I hold everything into place before I start working on that second layer. Go ahead and switch out that lighter green, and I'm going to bring in the color that's 1 shade deeper than this. This is not my darkest color yet. I'm just coming in with 1 shade deeper, and I'm not even going to switch out my brush. I'm going to use the same brush because I am using a color that's in the same color family. So make sure that you have one blending tool that is for each color family, because that's easier for you to just grab one of these instead of multiple brushes. And all you have to do is just kind of scrub these off on a paper towel or a piece of paper in order to get some of the excess ink off. So now, since this layer is done, I can go ahead and remove this stencil. Now, I did realize that I should have left this stencil on and maybe finished up some of the other ink blending, but it's very, very forgiving with this kit. I can always go back in and fill in the colors that I missed. So now I'm coming in with the third stencil one more time, holding that down with the tape, and I'm coming in with my medium tone of ink. Now, as you can see, I did speed up some of the coloring or ink blending because it's a very, very simple process here. All you're going to do is go through your stencils, clean them off when you need to, and then layer them back on so you can build up the color. But just seeing it right here, you can see how gorgeous this lily is going to be and really how simple it is to color. So now I'm coming in one more time with that medium shade and blending out those areas. And I'm just making sure any areas that I want it to be light, I kind of preserve that by going back to my lightest shade. Now I'm going to come in with the darkest of all the shades and deepen up those areas. So look how gorgeous this is. Now with easy stenciling, I do not worry about the highlights and the lowlights of an image I'm working on. I just like to lay down my color and see how it works for me. Now, sometimes if I am doing coloring with color pencils, watercolors, or something like that, I do try to pay attention where those things are. But again, when you're making cards, don't let it be too stressful for you. Just kind of go with the flow and see what works for you. So I'm going back in with that last stencil just to finish off the top of the green part, and look how gorgeous this image is. Now I do need to finish off where the seeds are, and that's going to be my darkest color. And again, I'll have all of these colors listed below. And once I finish up that, this is pretty much done. And this is how the card is going to look, or the image is going to look. And it's absolutely stunning. And as you can see, it really did not take me much time to do this, maybe about 7 minutes. I did fast forward this just a little bit so you didn't have to just see how repetitious this is, because it really is a very easy stencil. Now I can line up the coordinating die, and again, this is going to hang off my page, and I'm okay with that. I can easily line that up, put on some purple tape, and run that through my die cut machine. Okay, and this is what the gorgeous image looks like. Look how stunning that is. So now this is going to work perfectly on my card front. So before I start, I do want to use the coordinating embossing folder. This is a 6x6 embossing folder, and the paper I'm using is a little bit smaller than a 5.5 by 7, or a 5 by 7 actually. And I'll run this through my die cut machine, and look how gorgeous that image is. Now you could totally use that image by itself, or as you can see here, I'm going to layer mine up. So I'm going to get a little bit of texture in the background from the embossing folder. But what I love, it truly does mirror the stamp image that you also get in this kit. So that really does fill up a card nicely. And really at this point, I just need to figure out where I want my sentiment to go. So like I said, this stamp set has a load of sentiments. So we have thank you, smile, congrats, love, hello, and they also have matching like sub-sentiments. So I'm going to use 2 of these. I'm going to use one of the scripty ones, and then I'm also going to use one of the smaller sub-sentiments. I do like stamp sets to have the sub-sentiment because I think it really helps to finish off a card nicely. Now I did want to pull in some black for this, so I do have a piece of black cardstock. And I think I will use maybe the thank you, and then like I said, one of the sub sentiments as well. Now I am going to heat emboss this, so I do want to use my powder tool, because sometimes on this black cardstock it can be a little bit staticky. So using that embossing tool is really going to help me make sure that none of that white residue is left over from me stamping down these images. Now, like I said, I have a top sentiment as well as a sub sentiment, and I'm just going to lightly walk my fingers across this. Now, with these smaller sentiments and these more detailed lines, you want to make sure that you don't push too hard, because you can bloom out your sentiment. So as you can see, I'm just lightly walking my fingers right across it in order to get a good impression without it being bloomed out. I can go ahead and remove that from my MISTI, and I'm going to sprinkle on some white embossing powder. Now this white embossing powder is from Hero Arts, and I usually keep this right in a tub next to my desk. And as you can see, because I use that powder tool, I'm not getting a lot of that residue of the embossing powder sticking to my paper. Now all I have to do is heat set this. And I'm going to heat set this on high, and I always make sure to get my gun nice and hot before I bring it to my paper. All right, once that is heat set, we can go ahead and start building up my card. Now, this is a white on white card panel, and this ends up to be a 5 by 7 card. To adhere down this panel, because it does have some texture in it from the embossing folder, I am going to use a tape runner for this. And this is just kind of ensure me that the edges are really nice and stuck, as well as the area that has the embossing on it. So now all I have to do is kind of line that up, and this fits over an entire card panel. Again, this is a 5 by 7 card. So once I get that lined up, I mean, look how pretty this is. You can totally finish your card right here and just put a sentiment on it and totally be done with your card. You don't even have to use the stencil or the stamp set. Now, I do think that this stamp set also will be very pretty if you just did the embossing Also did the this on white with gold embossing powder, again not coloring it, and just placing this on top. I think that would be a stunning card as well. I did make sure to layer this die up a couple times to give it some depth onto my card panel. So as you can see, I cut out one more layer and I'm placing that right behind my colored piece. So I did this, I believe it was 3 times, because I do want to have some weight to this. Because it is such a large image, it might be a little bit floppy. So in order to keep that from like flopping and just being very flimsy on my card panel, I do stack this up. All I have to do is trim off that little piece that I know is going to hang off my card panel. And I'll just grab my larger scissors to get this done. And look how gorgeous this is. This might be one of my favorite Craft Your Life project kits. I really, really love this lily. Now to put this on, I am going to use some wet adhesive, just because there's little intricate parts. Going back to that tape runner is not going to do me justice. So I will use liquid adhesive to put this down onto my card panel. Now there is a little bit of texture as well going over the embossed areas. So that's why I would totally suggest making sure that you use a wet adhesive for this. And I can go ahead and press that down. Now there is a little bit of the flower that's going to be hanging off my card as well. Not a big deal. I can go ahead and trim this off. Now if you wanted to, you can keep that piece and maybe put it towards the top to make it look like your pattern like went off the top of your paper as well. But because I only have a little bit of this left, I am just going to trim that off. Now, if you're not a subscriber, I highly suggest you subscribe. I mean, I love sharing all of my crafting tips on this channel, and make sure to hit that notification bell so you know when I have a new video up. Thank you for all of my recent subscribers and my people who have been here for years with me. I truly, truly appreciate you. Now for the sentiment, I went ahead and I used some foam tape to pop up the first larger sentiment. And then I am just using some glue to put down my sub sentiment. And look how gorgeous this is. Now again, all the products I used in the video are linked in the description box below. And I will see you guys in another video soon. Take care everybody and stay well. Bye-bye.